and a number of other authors who published this paper, and it's found in the psychologist, because Sue and colleagues are clinical psychologists. They created a taxonomy of what they called microaggressions, and did this through a review of the social psychological literature on racism and from personal narratives of counselors talking about their racial and cultural awakenings. What are the commonalities between these three perspectives? I think, first of all, that there is an experience of exclusion that goes on today. These are small, they're subtle, they're often innocent, unconscious, the perpetrator, but they are detrimental, and they do occur in a variety of contexts, not just our living world, but society in general. And they are more likely to have a negative impact when there is an unequal power dynamic. So, what I do is present some examples of some of these micro inequities or micro aggressions. Because again, many times, as I said, they are unconscious. Many times we're saying things that we hope are detrimental but are positive, but sometimes they do sort of boomerang on us. So I put together just a series of slides giving some examples, and I framed it from Sue and colleagues, where they identified these themes on their taxonomy. The second column is verbalizations are behaviors, and if you see, I say when we say or do, because even as a Black woman, I have been guilty of doing these things. And the third column is what it may mean to the person of color. And again, the person of color who determines whether this is a microaggression. Just running through a few of them. The first one is sort of titled Alien in One's Own Land. That's when persons of color are assumed to be foreign-born. How this comes up sometimes is when we ask people, where are you from? Where are you born? And even though, again, intentions may be perfectly innocent or harmless, it may convey to a person of color that you're not American or that you are a foreigner. And being a light-skinned Black woman, I can't tell you how many times that question has been asked of me. Where are you from? Indiana. No, where were you born? Evansville, Indiana. And, I can just see the person saying, she's not getting what I'm asking, but I have not been forthcoming with that. Attribution of intelligence is another area. When we say or possibly comment to someone that you are really a credit to your race, your community, or your people, what it may mean. People of color are generally not as intelligent as whites, or it's unusual someone of your race to be so smart. Another comment might be you are just so articulate. And again, it's taken that way, but it sometimes could be taken that way. Color blindness is a second theme that Sue and all identified. And again, I'm going to read these to you, but because you can read them on the screen, and I'm really cognizant of the time. But sometimes that can be taken as denying an individual's racial or ethnic experiences, or as a to tell them to assimilate to the dominant culture. Some examples, the assumption of criminality. A store owner following an individual around the store assumes that the person of color is presumed to be dangerous, criminal, or deviant on the basis of their race. Unfortunately, just 2 years ago, one of our students who was serving as a research assistant for one of our faculty in the copy room making some copies, and the staff person didn't ask her who she was, didn't ask her to identify herself, but immediately called campus police and had this student of color questioned by our campus police because she thought that she was doing something wrong. So again, these things are still happening, and I think we need to be aware of them. The myth of meritocracy, the belief that people of color are given extra or unfair benefits. Again, my friend Stokes told me that many times she got students in her office wanting to be reassured that they had been admitted to the program on the basis of their own performance, because they had had colleagues in class tell them that they were only in the program because of affirmative action. Again, it's still out there, and we need to be aware of it. Second-class citizen, persons of color being mistaken for service workers, and that's something that Diane was talking about, teachable moment. That might be something that happens in the clinical area. And if it happens, again, I think there's an opportunity for we as faculty to speak up and name it and claim it. And we'll go over these if there are any questions, but I'm really trying to move this along. Denial of racism. And I have caught myself a couple of times doing this. People saying, I'm not a racist, I have several black friends, and specifically, saying as a female, if someone who is of color is talking about an unpleasant situation, you're reassuring them because you say, I'm a female, I know what you're going through as a minority. I have had to catch myself a couple of times. We have a woman now from Kenya, and they have had a lot of unrest in Kenya based on tribal affiliation, and she has processed some of that with me, and as she's describing how she multiple times was discriminated in her nursing career because based on her tribe. So many times I wanted to say, yes, Naomi, I know what you're talking about. I've experienced that as a black woman in the United States. But it's not the same. I really don't know what she's experiencing. It is different. Emphasizing cultural values and communication styles. I think we all have our ways of interacting, and asking or pointing out to a person of color that their mode of interaction is not quite the American way can sometimes be interpreted very negatively. And lastly, environmental or systemic microaggressions. And we look around our university and we see the buildings all, they're named after white upper-class males. What message does that send? Or we look at our university brochures, our school brochures, our websites, and we don't see any persons of color. What message does that send? Who are substandard extracurricular activities geared to communities of color? Again, it sends a message. And lastly, no or few faculty, no or few leaders, if you're talking about the clinical setting of color. The big thing, I know it sounds a little bit trivial, but I just want to tell you just a quick story of how that really affected my view of an institution. I got my doctorate at the University of Texas at Austin, and the main library there is named for the first African American full professor. And I was there back in the early 80s. You know, you walked in the entryway and there was this huge display of this guy, and he, you know, he wasn't a nurse, he was a civil engineer. You know, that the message that sent to me was that, hey, I can be successful here. It is possible to become a full professor even if you're a person of color. How do these subtleties do damage? Just this quote out of Rowe's article. She said, as one drop of water has little effect, continuous drops be destructive. They to exclude the person of difference, they serve to make the person less confident and less protective. So I think it behooves all of us to be more aware of these microaggressions or micro inequities, and then I'd just like to throw it open to the group to comment on this. Hopefully it will stimulate some discussion and some approaches for addressing some of these. So,
to ask for the scholars, particularly to help answer this question. This is, you know, kind of a little case study here, and we'd love to hear from you all. And I will be the one to on people, but I'd love to see 5 or 6 hands. And while these scholars are kind of pulling their thoughts together, I'm going to ask Jean and Demetrius, is there anything that you would like to add or say or respond to what Rose has had to say?
Demetrius, one of the things I think I would respond to what Dean Mays was saying is a lot of what she was saying is based on race, but a lot of it is also applicable to males.
Okay, and I think, you know, we're probably going to be seeing a lot of themes that run through these presentations. So those microaggressions are true for gender as well.
This is Jean. I would add across the various ethnic groups. I think there's some great similarities.
Okay, thank you. I see that we have one scholar, Tara, and I'm going to call on her in a minute, but I'd love to see a few more hands coming up. So we're trying to think here about, you know, Dean Mays has given you some ideas of where microaggressions and micro inequities exist, and some great examples of how they exist in nursing. So what can we be doing about this? So I'm going to try to unmute your line here. Oops, unmute, okay. Oops. I'm going to unmute just Tara, we'll try. Okay, Tara, are you, can you hear?
Yes, I can.
Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to comment that in the school where I work, in order to promote a sense of community and kind of a respect for cultural diversity, a professor at the semester runs a multicultural dinner. And students, if they want to participate, they can bring food from their culture, and they sit and they, you know, talk about their community and their sense of culture, and on that level, standing.
Okay, great example, and I'm going to push just one little moment further. What do you see as the benefit or outcome of that?
Communicate with each other on a different level and ask about different customs. You know, why do they eat certain things? You know, certain mean to them.
Okay, I'm going to engage Rose here for just a minute, because I know these are some of the things that IU School of Nursing does too. Those, you know, the luncheons that we've had. Do you want to add anything that you've seen in terms of the outcomes or benefits? And you are doing some of that with your international programs as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm back on. I'm sorry.
You're back. Yeah, you're always on.
Yes. The multicultural food thing is great. I can remember when I was a graduate student many years ago when I had my first taco. At the time, we didn't have very much ethnic diversity here in Indianapolis, and that was quite an experience. Yes, I think that can really stimulate a lot of good conversation. Many times we found that Louisiana is a fairly rural state, and it's fairly not diverse out in some of these rural communities. Many times our students are coming here, especially our white students. They've not had very much interaction with students of color at all. So it's not that they're intentionally sticking together, but they just really haven't had that experience. So I think that really opens it up. Thank you, Diane. Okay, and I'll share a little story from my perspective as a faculty member. I have students from Qatar and Kuwait, and they've always made a point of inviting their faculty over to their homes for dinner. Mm-hmm. And, the sharing of the food, is a nice way of creating community, but it was a great way for me to understand the students better, what their lives were like, and what the contributions they could be making to the classroom, and how I could interact with them on a more positive basis. So, thanks for giving us on just the mere wonderful idea of sharing food together. So, I am going to call next on Sheila, and then if we have time, I'll take one more. Okay, so Sheila, let's see. I need to unmute you here.
They're muted right now, Diane.
Okay, it is. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Two things. One, it's not just race, and it's not just gender. It's also religion. Mm-hmm. As a Jewish woman, I can't tell you when I was younger how many times people told me that I didn't act Jewish, and they told me that as a compliment. Uh-huh. And also, in class, when we go clinicals, I have run clinicals in a very diverse settings in New Jersey in the hospitals. And sometimes in post-conference, it's really helpful to just really open up the discussion. Because there are a lot of students from diverse backgrounds, and everybody always wants to be polite. We're afraid to talk about different impressions. In working with these patients, we discussed the idea of hyper-religiosity, because all the psychiatric patients become very religious. Some of the students who were African American talked about, in their homes, they taught religion a lot. What does this mean, and how is it different? And really, to be able to talk about these things from different cultures without being afraid to talk about them, I learned a lot, and I think all of the students learn a lot.
Okay, great idea. To answer the question that Rose has posted here for us, what can we do to address? You're suggesting that we talk about it, have discussions, use teachable moments when the issues come up. And, it takes an awareness on the part of the faculty that that's what's going on, what could happen, and a little bit of comfort to be able to open it up. But I imagine you found, too, that once you put it on the table, everybody's able to contribute. So thanks for sharing. And I'm going on Rusty, and Michelle and Munira, I haven't forgotten you. But go ahead.
Hi. One of the things we did in undergraduate school, which I thought was incredibly helpful, was for clinicals, my section was in a hospital in a predominantly Muslim community. And we did a lot of research before we went in there on the religion, to follow on the religion comment. And it was very helpful in dealing with the patients, and we learned a lot about I think that, and that was the only time that we did it. And there were hospitals we were in different communities. I think that would have been very helpful if it had been continued.
Okay, great. And so part of what we can do to address is to prepare the students when they're in experiences with patients. Okay, great. Michelle, you were probably in line some earlier, so I'll call on Michelle Skibber.
Okay. Hi. I just wanted to say, I came from a very non-diverse area, and I just want to thank Rose for bringing this to my attention because I'm sure I have been guilty in the past of some of these microaggressions because, I didn't know, and now, after going through her lecture, I'm more aware, and I think that, this will be something that I can take in my practice when I start and I go into being a faculty member. So thank you.
Okay, great. And then, Munira, go ahead, and then we'll move on. Okay?
Hi. What I wanted to comment on was the one thing that Rose talked about was, the microaggression of denial of culture. I think for a very long time in medicine and nursing, we've always said everybody's the same, let's treat everybody the same. And one of the points that I always make in a transcultural course that I teach is that we need to know that people are different. We need to celebrate that difference. We need to embrace that difference. And difference is not a bad thing. So stop denying the difference and move on from there. And some of the things that we can do to address, one of the neat things we do in this particular course is we have the students make a field trip, so sort of a mini cultural immersion process that they go through. The students break up into groups and they can, spend a day in Chinatown. They can go to a wedding from a culture that they've never been to. They can do different things that are out of their cultural comfort zone, and then they report back to the rest of the students either through slides, through photographs, and just talking about some of the things they saw. And we try to tie it into some of the transcultural concepts that we're teaching in that class so that they actually see that life being lived and get a sense of the colors, the smells, the food, the way people treat each other. And I think that gives them a much different perspective than just coursework.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm going to put the flyer and give everybody one last opportunity if you have something you want to follow up with Dean Mays. And while you guys are thinking, I want to just kind of clarify or fine-tune a point here. There's things that we do with the students to help prepare them to work with their patients, but in the same analogy, there's things as faculty that we do to prepare ourselves to work with students. And that's kind of where we want to be emphasizing today. This is the thing we need to do ourselves to know how to work with the students that we're facing and dealing with in our classroom. So let me now say any final questions for Dean Mays, and then we'll move ahead. And Michelle, a question for Dean Mays? And Sheila, is that a question for Dean Mays?
No. Do I, wait, let me.
Your hand is still up, so I just want to make sure that
Okay, I got it.
everybody that wants to ask a question.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I think now we're going to move ahead and talk about men in nursing. And plus, if you could be sure that Demetrius has the I'll have to say it. I know these panelists, and I'm calling them by their first name, and I think we've kind of established that norm in our classroom, but at the same time, these are people who we want to be sure that we're respecting. So, Demetrius, Dean, go ahead. Okay.
I'm really excited about sharing just a few ideas and really just beginning to touch the tip of the iceberg. I've really had the pleasure over the last 3 years, and I'm entering my last year as being president of the American Assembly for Men in Nursing. And I can say pretty much that weekly I'm getting mails, emails, or phone calls for advisement from everything from regulatory bodies to nursing students, a lot of nursing students, male nursing students, to actually practicing nurses. But actually, I got to say, as Dr. Billings was talking, I was reflecting, I don't think I've had any from nursing faculty. So that's interesting. So I'll go ahead with my prepared presentation, and then we can talk and just open it up for any discussion. I have to talk about why males choose nursing. This seems to be a real big issue for our male students. Frequently, men, for some reason, are and again, they tend to take this in a negative way, or maybe as a microaggression, is that there's a belief that men are going into nursing for the money. My typical question, too, is well, are all the female nurses not taking home a paycheck? So I think when you look at the literature and what the studies are saying, is that men basically are primarily going into nursing nursing for the same reasons that women are going into nursing. But however, we have this bias and perception that really creates this tension for a lot of men. And so what they end up doing, from what I'm understanding, is really remaining silent. They're becoming part of the voiceless and just feeding into this. But men go into nursing because there's that desire to help someone, that desire to care. They also are very aware that nursing is a very growing profession. It is a mobile career in that you have multiple avenues, multiple specialties. You can go up into advanced practice and have a lot more autonomy. And there are some tendencies for males to be very excited about the technology, so you find them more in the critical care areas, and they like a lot of stimulation, so you'll find them again in the critical care areas. And a desire for a stable career, and that does feed into the money because they do want the security of having a stable income and a career to be able to support themselves and their family. So I think it's very important, building upon what Dean May said, is that making these assumptions sometimes of why men are where they are is hurting some of our male students. When you look at what the male nursing students are saying, the number one problem that they are experiencing that, again, leads to some isolation, it leads to I don't know what to do, I don't know if I'm behaving appropriately, is that they don't have a lot of male faculty role models. And frequently when they're in the hospital, they feel like they do not see male nurses until they go into the specialty areas like ICU, ER, critical care, or into surgical areas where they see the male nurse anesthetist. The other thing that the male students are talking about, and that we're finding through some of the literature and research that's being done, is that there are sometimes frequently males, the areas like OB, can males rotate through OB, and should they have that OB experience? Frequently it's said that, the patient doesn't want, and what you really have, some people have said this, is found is that we're not even asking the patient. The assumption is being made on behalf of the patient by the nurse. So a lot, and in the student situation, that assumption sometimes is being made not on behalf of, being made on behalf of the patient by the nursing faculty member, and limiting the clinical experiences that males get in their nursing educational program. So sometimes our own female faculty members' beliefs about males and what can and can't do can be limiting. There is a huge fear of stigmatization with men, and I think that's one of the things that we've done a lot of work with, going into the all-male boys schools, etc., and trying to do recruitment very early. There is a fear of stigmatization, again, that, when they're growing up and they're playing and they're being socialized, that boys play doctor and the girls play nurse, and so they feel that they still don't see nursing as pretty much a male profession either. So the other stigmatization that goes with that is about their sexual orientation. Frequently men are very concerned of being stigmatized or labeled as being gay if they go into a primarily female profession. So what we do when we go in is we explain to them a lot of the whole transition that's happening in medical education, and talk about some of what's happening in medicine, where some up to 50 and 60% of some classes are now female, where it predominantly thought of medicine being and begin to share some of that information, and with some schools here in Louisiana that have up to 30-something% of each class as being male. And so we begin to try to break through that stigmatization, gender stigmatization and masculinity stigmatization. One of the things, and I think I'll touch on this a little bit later, is that there's been some research to say who's really the caring males, and really the only male nurses that come out to be caring are typically your pediatric and your neonatal nurses, because they exhibit caring behaviors in a similar pattern to females, i.e. they will touch the child, they will hold the child, they will maybe hold the baby. And so other persons who are then looking at the nurse, they feel, they're so caring. Well, what happens with men is frequently men show and exhibit their caring in a much different way, and frequently it's advocating. It may not always be in the physical touch, because we'll talk about this a little later, is that one of the things that males are concerned about, and I think that we don't do very good, is what is appropriate touch, and how can a male touch another patient without having any overlying accusations of sexual, aggression towards the patient. And that's some of the questions we get or will get from regulatory agency. And one of the things that has been found from some research is that acceptance of males in nursing is really dependent upon the experience with working with males. In other words, if our female colleagues have had positive experiences in the past with working with males, that they're very much embracing of males into the profession. And so that does impact how they're going to treat the male nursing students. And some of those studies have actually shown, for some reason, that the number of male nurses in rural communities is higher, and there seems to be increasing acceptance of male nurses in rural communities. So what are some strategies that we can actually implement? And these recommendations come from my experience, and also comes from talking to lots of students, but also some of it comes from the literature. We have a tremendous critical void of male mentors in nursing. I'm not saying that all male students have to have just a male mentor, because actually it was not until after my master's that I found my first male mentor. Most of my mentors were always female, but they're looking for a male role model, and so I think that is critical. They want to know how to act as a male nurse. Actually, sometimes to avoid some of the stigmatizations is what they're after. How can I show my caring? Is it okay for me to touch a female patient? How can I touch a female patient? How do I do some very intimate nursing skills without anybody misinterpreting something that I'm doing? So that happens through mentoring and role modeling, and having open and honest discussions with their colleagues, their female nurse colleagues, and also their mentors. Storytelling is very positive for male nurses in telling them, some experiences that must have had, positive and negative, and how the situation has been dealt with. That helps them establish how they're going to approach situations. Definitely conflict resolution, because males sometimes, the way to solve a problem is going to be, and part of this Mars and Venus and helping the males understand how men process information and how our female colleagues process information, and so how we can bring that to the table for conflict resolution, because it appears that males overall are much more direct. And so sometimes that directness can be taken as, quote, they're being aggressive and being violent. And so there is, again, an underlying concern by males in that, they can't be confronted with my female nursing colleagues or other female nursing students, because then they're going to accuse me of being violent. And this clarification is another thing that they need to be able to talk about what's important to them, what are their values, and help them assimilate their values in comparison to nursing, the nursing philosophies that we study, the nursing theories that we study. And that is a way that we've found that we can actually help the males identify with nursing and connect with nursing by going to values and philosophy. And they need self-esteem and confidence building. Sometimes what you will see is that they're trying to establish their self-esteem and confidence, and because they're so intimidated and don't really know how to act as a male within a predominantly female profession. So they're struggling with that continuously. So I think role modeling and a strong mentor can help them build their confidence and to actually do some validation of what they're doing and reassuring them that they're handling situations correctly. Areas for men in nursing, and this is again now moving away from just the students, but the public perception of men in nursing, again, that gets back to the stigmatization. The perception that when you see a male, they must be a physician, or again, talking about those statements of microaggression, when you see a male nurse and say, oh, you're so smart, why didn't you go into medicine? Why didn't you become a doctor? And so that is, frequently those things are very irritating to men, to say the least, because we find with the majority of males is that it was a very conscious decision to choose nursing over medicine. Not that they didn't have the GPA or they didn't get into medical school. We've had some of our male students, faculty, have reported to me that they've been in clinical and the patients have assumed to them, oh, you're doing so good, why don't you reapply to medical school? And they have to go in and say, well, I never did apply to medical school because I don't want to be a physician. The other thing we found is that if the family is supportive of the male and understand and support them to go into female profession, that is very positive. If there's not family support, then men are very, it again increases anxiety and abilities to deal with that, more so for the African American males. And like I said, men need exposure to male nurses earlier on in their life when they're making career decisions, or male young men when they're making their career decisions, and also very early on in their nursing education. The other thing is that men like autonomy. So I think, if they don't perceive the autonomy to be there, they're more likely to exit the profession. So that is partly why you will see males go to specialty areas that are very autonomous in nature. The other thing that is suggested about why males go into some of those environments like ER and ICU, because of the teamwork. They feel that there's better teamwork and not the silos of practice in those environments. So again, that fits with some of what would also be stereotypical of males, but what really comes out with men is that they like to work in teams and they like to be more autonomous. The other thing that I think is very much lacking in nursing education and helping men with realizing that men have been into the nursing profession a long time is that we focus on modern nursing and we focus upon mother of nursing, and basically just really emphasizing that nursing pretty much began with Florence Nightingale, when there was a whole era of nursing when primary nurses were male in the Middle East in the earliest of times. They were the primary caregivers in the time of epidemics and pandemics. The majority of providers of care in some of the port cities were your male nurses. So again, helping men connect to that future, it gives them that sense of pride and that self-esteem, and helps them reestablish their place within the discipline. And then also, men have felt like there's been a lack of recognition of their accomplishments. It's almost like when men are achieving something in nursing, they feel like there's a token. So again, this gets back to some of the things that Dean Mays said. The point that we recognize this as a national issue, so the American Assembly of Men in Nursing, pretty much Dean Mays was saying, established 2 awards. We have one award for the best workplace. And so what happens is that a workplace, a hospital, any kind of healthcare institution can be nominated to show how they promote men in nursing and what are they doing to recruit and retain men in nursing, what are the unique programs they have for men in nursing to support them. We also have a very similar award, and they actually, not only is it an application, they actually develop a whole portfolio, a binder. It's peer-reviewed by a panel across the country, and we will give an award to as many people as we can who meet the criteria. We will do one for Best Nursing School. Again, the same thing. We're the schools that have, special for the recruitment and retention of male nursing students. As physical environment, there's a presence in the physical environment, everything from their literature to their pamphlets to their website, that you can see that men are there and available. Again, getting back to those a way to recognize men, their contribution, but it's also a way of being able to put out press releases and educating the larger community about the presence of men in nursing. Some other barriers that men struggle with is whenever men are promoted, it's because they are male and not because they have an increased educational level or because they have been successful or they achieved it on their own. So they really struggle with this a lot, the perception of favoritism. Sex and sexual orientation stereotyping is a barrier for men that some men are very concerned about. The issue of nursing, those are very, I know that we all get upset, females also get upset about the image of nursing in the media, meaning to be even more irritated because it's always displaying the women and the nurse as being very subservient, the drug, or whatever TV show you want to take. And so they're very concerned about that because, it again impacts them and the perception of who they are. Economic factors is another barrier for men in nursing in that, frequently men have to provide for their family, so they are very much concerned with having stability and being able to earn a good income. So that is and it could be a barrier. And female gender language, again, the he and the she, and really referring to nurses as she and female. Again, females, what they do is they remain silent, or they do the opposite and get very confrontive about it. But it is something that bothers men, and really, again, it's again making you feel as an outsider to the profession, and really points out once again, that you are different, and so that is something that we need to be cautious of. Men are leaving the profession, and I don't think men are leaving the profession at any higher rate than females, but I think if you look at it, it's better salary. It's convenience of the hours. They're, again, not necessarily they don't want to work nights, but they're looking for hours that are more convenient to them. Frequently, it's to go to school. Looking for something more professionally rewarding than non-nursing. Some men have found that it's rewarding because of the fact that they feel like they reach a glass ceiling. Doesn't it sound familiar with those things? They feel that sometimes they are oppressed by their fellow colleagues and not being able and permitted to rise up in the organization, even though they may have the education and the competence. And the collegial environment of female colleagues is another issue that has been reported. Again, they like to go to work. They want to focus on the work. They want to work as a team. But getting to the personal issues of, that go on some of the units, men get very frustrated with that and like to get down to the business. So this has also been cited in the literature as men are leaving because they don't feel the support of each other. Again, getting back to some of those teamwork ideas. Men in caring, basically what you see like with men and how they exhibit caring is a very personalized interaction with the patient. They seem to focus on the patient. There's actually been some studies on patients and looking at the perception of male and female nurses where the patient has reported that the male nurses have spent more time with them than the female nurses, and that the male nurses were concerned with all of their needs than the female nurses. And I think that's looking at, again, the male may not be touching their hands and holding them, but may be advocating and spending more time and just talking with the patient. But he pointed out that the male nurses, quote, did not rush around as much as, quote, the female nurses rushed around. So that was interesting. Thing about the interaction between the male nurse and the patient, and I'm not really sure we understand at this point. Again, males were found to be more likely to be accessible, more able to form a trusting relationship, and perform comforting behaviors. And then females who had previously received care by a male nurse actually had a preference for male nurses in female-specific clinical areas, primarily in OB and pediatric areas. It seems like once a patient, especially a female patient, has been taken care of by a male, any concerns about the male is really decreased, which is a real issue. We usually look at touch from a very feminine perspective, and also the issue of sexualization of touch creates a problem. So the feminization and the sexualization of touch creates a problem for men because men are very concerned about how and when to appropriately touch a patient so that they don't get any overlaying accusation of sexual misconduct. And I think one of the things we're doing is there's a failure to prepare our male nursing students to protect themselves, to explain to them, what is appropriate. You can touch a patient, but let them know that you're comforting them. Again, it's that communication aspect of the touch. And again, touching in appropriate areas at the appropriate time is very important. But also, so what males have to do is frequently communicate what they're doing, and sometimes ask permission. Is it okay for me to sit here and hold your hand and comfort you? So, stop there, and this is, like I said, just the tip of the iceberg. And as you can see, there are a lot of differences between Dean May's presentation, a lot of overlap. But one of the biggest concerns I have as I'm concluding here is, are we doing everything we should be doing for our male nursing students and help them not feel so isolated? So, thank you. To you, Billings.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Dean Porter. I'm going to ask then for the scholars and anybody else to ask any questions or make any comments that you would like to about Dean Hirsch's presentation. It was, I learned quite a few things myself, and go ahead. I'm going to call on Andrew first, and then Rose, I'll get back with you. Okay. Andrew, go ahead.
A whole bunch of different things about this topic clearly being but I just wanted to start out and say that I would definitely agree that males for some reason tend to go. I've worked in the ER now for a year, and from my experiences, anytime that I worked with other males, we seem to work in a team. I don't really know why or what the reasoning is, but that was the tendencies, is that we weren't, our wasn't set up for team nursing, quote unquote. But whenever you had a certain amount of male nurses in an area, we seemed to flock and work together to solve different patient problems or whatever it may be. And I definitely would say that I think early exposure of role models is very good, especially for the male students or males that are potentially interested in nursing, because I think with the media, you see nurses portrayed very well in the media to begin with on these different on shows and whatever it may be, but it's really the males. You don't really see a lot of male nurses in any of those shows, even if it is a show that's related to specifically nursing. So something that we were doing, I did my undergrad at the College of New Jersey, and I used to give tours, and I used to sit in when they would break out into the different departmental sessions, and I would always attend the nursing one, and I would speak especially to the males that were interested. And from my experiences, a lot of males that were and didn't necessarily believe in those stigmas were males that had parents that were in the profession already, and their mothers or their fathers may, or any other family members may, have changed their opinion of those stigmas. The ones that were quiet and weren't quite as didn't have as many questions were the ones that were maybe interested in it, but still, had society telling them they should be physicians or whatever it may be. And I think if the family is supportive, I would definitely have to agree that I think that's a huge why some males end up going into either go into nursing, or if the family's not as supportive and they're basing their opinions on societal views, they shy away from it. And something that we were doing is I would used to especially go up to these potential students and give them out my phone number or my email address and say, if you have any questions, certainly, feel free to email me. And actually, we're doing well with recruitment at the College of New Jersey and bringing in more male students. Now, my experience personally was, I've been on First Aid Squad now for about 7 years, and we actually had a lot of the EMTs gone on to be registered nurses, so I think there's about 6 of us that are now nurses on the First Aid Squad, and I'm probably one of the younger ones, so I had a lot of role models early on. So my family was used to the fact that I was considering going into the nursing profession, so they were very supportive of me, but I think that there's males out there that shy away from nursing because they don't have those role models, so I think it's important for us to have good role models for these students and get views on nursing to be more positive.
Respond?
Yes, good.
And one of the things I want to say is what we have currently done is that we have a local chapter of the American Assembly for Men in Nursing here at SU. And so as we admit our new class, which we do twice a semester, we hold our first nursing meeting, and we invite of course, all the students, and we do have female attendees and female members, and we do have female faculty members. We invite male students, and we ask them if they would like to bring a parent. We had a number of foreigners come. So what we strategically do is we present the presentation about the assembly, but we really talk about, how wonderful nursing is and all the opportunities you have and all the different specialties and graduate education, how it can be a lifelong career. But we also go back and concentrate on that historical piece of the Middle East and the first males and really begin to establish how men have been nurses for all this time. And what we find is that the fathers are ecstatic, and some of them were first sitting there, not sure why their young son was here and what's going on with their, hands crossed and close body posture, and it really seems to break through the barrier. So ways, I guess, is what I'm saying, is to begin to get some of that family support. We have a lot of family members that attend those for meetings of the Assembly of Men in Nursing here at LSU because, especially with those males, they want to figure out what's going on. Because I think what's important to know is that we've already had a family day. We have what's family day, and all students can bring family members. He's already had an opportunity, so it's really not a need to come back. This is something special, and they definitely come back, some of these parents.
I think that's great, and it's also, by getting the family involved with that, you can potentially change the family's view on that, and then have more, males from that family potentially decide, I think nursing is a great profession. So I think that's something great that you guys are doing over there.
We've actually seen that, Andrew. Seen where brothers have come in, and actually we've actually seen where we've had some of our female students who we've admitted. And, they brought their siblings to the family day that we had in the beginning because we talk about men nursing, and that's, again, another way to catch those males.
Great. Should I call on Bob now? Did you say ready for another comment? Okay. Thank you. And so, Bob, go ahead. And do I need to Bob Scolavi's line here? Let me get there.
No, unmuted.
Good, thanks. Go ahead, Bob. Bob there?
Bob has his line muted. His end.
Oh, okay, let me.
Have our Lisa Mobley.
Hello?
Yeah, let's go to.
Everyone's open now.
Okay, Bob, go ahead, and then we'll go to Rose.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Yes.
I just want to say thanks to Dean Porsche. It's the first lecture of any kind that I've ever heard of regarding males in nursing, and nursing is for me is my second career, and I also want to second what you had said about family members. My mother's been a nurse for a very long time, and was a factor in me going into nursing. Just to address some of the mentorship issues that came up during the lecture. My mentors that I nursing have all been female, and I'm not sure that that really hindrance to me at all. I mean, I think once you're in the profession, you're going to have to operate within the scope of the profession, and for me personally, I really never have felt against for being a male. In times, it's actually provided me more opportunities. But as a question, you had talked about making men that are already in nursing programs more comfortable. What could we do to recruit more males into the nursing schools? I know there's, it's probably, I'm not with the percentages of males that are actually in nursing schools, but I would say it's probably not much more than 10 or 15%.
Yeah, it's definitely less. I think one of the things that we learned is that career decisions are happening very early. And honestly, we're hitting the junior high school and the high school, but I still think that is too late. And we need to hit the elementary schools and really begin to create that and recognition that that males are not only doctors, that males are also nurses very early on. But the thing that we have done tremendous work with and had much success, unfortunately, is working with school counselors, especially in the junior high and the high schools, getting them to try to see nursing as an option. If there's a male and the male presents to the guidance counselor with any interest in healthcare, no matter how much we've worked with them, they are going to first refer them to medicine. So it is a group that I welcome any ideas how to break through that group to help them understand the ability to have, and to provide that as an option. Because those junior high school and high school males are very, it's formative years where they're listening to these guidance counselors, and so they're not being directed in that venue. One of the things we did was that we first started out with which we call Future Nurses Institute, basically where we take high school students and junior high students in the summer, bring them through first aid training, etc., and you teach them things about health and health promotion, and then begin to do some ACT prep if they have problems. We basically started that focusing on minorities, and it's called, to prepare them so that they could be successful applicants to nursing school. And we began to open and increase and invite more males into that. So that's another thing that we could do is have some kind of summer camp, just for men or for males.
At Rutgers University, we have a campus on New Brunswick. We have a campus in Newark, and every year there's those two have specific health sciences high schools, and every year I host a group of students that profess interest in healthcare, usually about 15 to 20 of them, and for that group there's only a couple male and kind of just there to get out of school, and you talk to them. So I'm not quite sure where the disconnect is, but I agree with you. The earlier on that you try to recruit them, the better off they'll be. And I think a lot of the national ads on TV, the television ads, they're kind of more diverse. But if you get print ads, it's usually more female-driven. If you look at the little kids, if you're looking at grammar school age books, most nurses are they do a better job with the diversity as far as ethnicity. But most of the nurses, you hardly see a male nurse in a child's book. So I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
Diane, and I'm kind of keeping an eye on the clock here. And if we can, be past 2:30, we'll go back to some of these questions. But Rose, give you a chance to speak, and then Elisa, if you have to do something quick, and then we'll move on to Jean, because I want to give Jean her fair time to speak as well. So Rose, do you have a comment?
Oh, well, just a brief comment. The presentation was just very fascinating. The commonalities, and it's already been pointed out before, of some of these issues, across race, gender, religion, etc. I just wanted to put in a pitch for the importance of mentors to help individuals, especially process many times some of these microaggressions when they come up. Many times these students just don't have anybody to talk with, and if there are trusted mentors in the environment, they can make a world of difference. Thank you.
Yeah, good point. And Jean's going to mention about mentors again, too. So, Elisa, let me give you a quick voice. And Dr. Joe, I see that you want to speak to, but I'm going to move ahead. So see if you can hold that to the final wrap-up, if you don't mind. So let's give us a quick comment here, and then we're done.
Comments I've had the privilege of working with students from a faculty standpoint, and have had tremendous success, and it's been a wonderful experience for me as well as them. One of the things I think has helped is that from a minority perspective, I was able to ask some of the extra questions to get them to open and talk about what bothered them or what was an issue for them, versus just assuming everything was all right. In terms of his Dr. Porsche's presentation, I just wanted to ask, was any research done that actually looked at the common themes among minority groups, including men?
I haven't. I actually am working with a group of students right now to do a state of science article about what we know about men in nursing. And hopefully I'll get to that soon. To look at that. I also want to applaud you for bringing that. I really find that men are silent, and by you stimulating them to process is that silence. Because how they're going to respond and cope and deal with this seems to be by being quiet.
Yeah.
Okay. This has been a fabulous discussion. I wish we had unlimited time, and we can certainly post and have discussion in our collaborative learning community, and I can connect you back to our panelists if we wish to continue the dialogue further. But right now I'm going to move ahead to Jean. And Jean, if probably 5 after, I'm going to probably butt in and wrap some things up. I have plans that we can give as much time to the panelists, so whatever else is left on my part, we can kind of together quickly. So, Jean, go ahead, and I'd say some of the things that, from my perspective, are really important are the things that you've done out of your student service office. So let's be sure we get those points.
Okay. In fact, when I get to some of the things on maybe the grants, I'll go a little more quickly so that we can definitely get to that point.
Great.
It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon, and as Dr. Billings mentioned, I'm at the University of Texas at Arlington, a campus of about 28,000 students located in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm going to get used to the slides, excuse me. I'm going to start with just a short overview of where we've been and some of the events that have shaped where we are today and our plans for the future, because we certainly are where we need to be. My focus will be on students who are Hispanic, but I think all of you are already seeing that many of the interventions can be applied to most any student. Prior to expanding our efforts to recruit and retain students who are Hispanic, the School of Nursing has several initiatives that focus on Hispanic students. My history will be brief, but I only mention it because I think it can provide ideas of how you can build these foundations. 1990 organized Hispanics in Nursing Advisory Council. That group just worked to assist faculty in assessing the needs of Hispanic nursing students, the health-related needs of the Hispanic community, and to help increase minority student enrollment. And just a year later, the Challenge to Leadership program was initiated, and the purpose of that group was to identify strategies to encourage enrollment, promote retention, and develop leadership skills within the Hispanic student group. By the time I took my current role, there was movement to take the group into the Hispanic Student Nursing Association, which is where we are today. And this organization is currently very active, and it came out of a process of exploration and evaluation. The organization's purpose is to recruit, mentor, and provide support to all UT Arlington nursing and nursing students. I have attended several of their meetings, and most of the students in the organization are Hispanic. There are several students who are not, and they attend the meetings just because they want to know more about what that group's doing, and they want to be involved. So I find that always very rewarding. Talking about this kind of leads me nicely into some of the grants that we have received. The first grant I'm just going to speak to briefly is a HRSA grant. But before I talk about that, I think I'd be remiss if I did not mention that just prior to receiving this rather large grant, we had a very small Texas Coordinating Board grant that I happened to be the PI on, and the sole purpose of that grant was to establish a Student Success Center. And I'm going to expand quite a bit on that as we get later in the lecture. But it really became a major part of our work. We received this HRSA grant, so that kind of all was coming together for us. You can see the purpose of that grant, and it just was to recruit and retain disadvantaged students, including minorities. Because we live in an area of the country with a large Hispanic population, where the disparity between the population and the number of Hispanic nurses was and still is very large or great, we focused on recruiting and retaining students who are Hispanic. For those of you that may not know, the population in Texas is about 36.5% Hispanic. And in Texas, only 9.6% of nurses are Hispanic. The Metroplex has a little bit larger, there's a little bit less of a gap, but it's still quite large. And in the School of Nursing, we have just leveled at about 8 to 9% of students who are Hispanic. So you can see we still have lots and lots of work to do. One of the things we did when we had the HRSA grant is we kicked off the grant by conducting a focus group. And we did that with both our African American students and our Hispanic students. But because I'm focusing on students who are Hispanic today, I'm going to share the results of that particular group. At the end of the conversation, we came up with some common themes, and you can see those listed on your slide. Very interestingly, they mirrored much of what we had found in the literature: family, career choices, retention issues, and roadblocks. Themes that several students mentioned relate to career choices in high school and the importance of being given choices. We use that advice extensively in our recruitment because students told us that their high school counselors often assumed they would either not go to college, or if they did, it would certainly be a community college. And I'm going to return to this point when I discuss some of the interventions. When we were earlier about recruiting, and it was mentioned digging deeper into beyond the middle school into elementary schools. We certainly know that to be true. And our experiences has shown us that counselors aren't always the best contact. And so what we've worked to do is to identify that maybe it's a magnet school and they have health-related groups. Maybe it's that teacher. And that's how we've been most successful to get into schools and to reach students, is to identify the person that's passionate about students and not that counselors aren't, I'm not saying that, but they sometimes have a different focus. But the faculty member who's passionate about the students in their particular group moving forward, sometimes that is the contact that has been most helpful for us. Some needs of students are identified here: financial aid, mentors, peer support, support faculty, and advisors who are knowledgeable and compassionate. From those themes, we quickly move to some implications. And through that, it was clear that the family was an integral part of Hispanic students. This integration could be positive and negative. Parents did not understand the demands of university work. They might have unrealistic expectations of their child. On the other hand, the family could be their tremendous support and their biggest cheerleader. And as in all things, it was different from student to student. We were going to provide options for students. We also realized that we need to be visible at junior and senior high schools. And as we've gotten into this, we know elementary schools as well. We had to not only talk about possibilities, but provide resources to obtain those possibilities. We were beginning to use the information we had received in our focus groups and what we knew from previous research. We also began to think beyond the school year, and that led to the development of a summer camp where students could visit the campus, meet students who looked like them, shadow healthcare workers, and be informed about resources to help them prepare for college and to pay for it. Even talking about what courses they might be taking and what opportunities might be out there became very important. Finally, we needed to provide academic and psychosocial support, mentors, and other support systems. While some of us were working on the HRSA grant and the first coordinating board grant, along came another coordinating board grant, and we had another group of faculty who were working on that. I also had a small part in that group. And we began to study and to identify perceived barriers and supports among students who are Hispanic. and provided the purpose statement of that second grant, which certainly you can go back and take a look at. I don't need to read it to you. The Coordinating Board grant used the model of institutional support. This particular model was selected as a framework to examine the perceptions of barriers and supports. The original model was proposed by Valverde and Rodriguez in 2002, and it consisted of the constructs of financial support, emotional and moral support, technical support, and academic advising. To that, the investigator added the construct of professional socialization, an aspect documented in the nursing literature as being important to professional development. Using that, we again went to focus groups. We used this to identify the barriers and supports. And I'm going to go over some barriers, and then, of course, we always like to swing to the positive and talk about the supports. Financial support was a dominant issue. And financial support, as defined, included money to pay tuition, fees, and other school expenses. But it really needs to be expanded to include expenses related to daily living, housing, food, transportation, and for some of our students, it included child care. Other financial issues included lack of information on how to access scholarships and the availability of financial aid and scholarships. In addition, some of the students and their families did not know how to complete the application process or might be unwilling to disclose details for fear of debt and adverse financial consequences. We found families who were not trusting and didn't want to give information that they felt could come back and haunt them. So lots of issues were identified in this particular barrier. Parents also frequently expected that their children will contribute to the family income, and they may not understand the demands of university study. And so it comes a balance between how much a student can work and what amount of money is expected to be contributed to the family. I'm reminded of a student who just suddenly disappeared, and we were calling and wondering where is he, and as it turned out is that there was a family emergency, and of course the very first thing was to go home and attend that. Second day was the school, and we were able to work with him once we understood what was going on, but the pull of the family is very strong. Students often have difficulty finding role models that they can identify, and some voiced access to faculty as a problem, as some faculty being insensitive to cultural differences. And that student might be an example. Some might say, well, he needed to stay here. Well, no, he didn't. He needed to go to his family. They also indicated that the advising they had received was limited at best. I took this one to heart because the advisors report to me, so I didn't like reading that at all. And you'll later see some of the changes we made in this area. I continue with the barriers. You can see students, they really have a few comments related to either barriers or supports in technology. But they did share that if they worked and had family responsibilities, they didn't have time to participate in activities outside of class. Okay, some of the supports. They're pretty self-explanatory, but I want to just make a few points about a couple of them. Moral support, that pretty much says it all. Availability of resources such as computers and online technical support. I think sometimes we fall in the habit of thinking everyone has internet access and everyone has a computer because we do. I have one of our daughters teaches in a elementary school with about a 90% Hispanic population, and she tells me all the time that emailing parents, those type of things, or when you talk about online books or e-books, that's not a possibility for some of these families because that's not something that is that they have. So I think we need to remember we're talking about a very large group, and sometimes some of the things that some of them may take for granted really are not there. What is a Hispanic-friendly institution? Well, I think it starts with recruiting when we start talking about when we're meeting with parents, we need to take someone that can speak Spanish because many of our parents really English is a second language, or they may speak limited English. So that can be one thing that can really help people relax if there's someone that speaks same language. We can have organizations and events on campus and various things that immediately make people feel friendly and feel at home and know that they're going to be welcome. I was struck by Dr. May's comment to when she went into the library and saw that it had been named, and she began to immediately feel that this might be a place where I will feel welcomed and have possibilities. I think that's true, and I think sometimes we forget that. Others, I'll talk a little bit more, and then professional organizations, as well as, and I guess student organizations would fall under that. More interventions specifically related to financial aid, and I know it seems like I'm talking about that a lot, but it really, really is a key thing for so many of our students. Students often really just don't even know what questions to ask, and for this reason alone, financial aid advisors must be proactive and provide complete information and ask the questions that clarify and guide the student. We include financial aid advisors in many of our recruitment visitors. We include in our summer camp and all sorts of activities so that students feel free to ask questions, and always provide an opportunity at the end of the formal presentation if they are uncomfortable asking those questions in a large group. We also added a 30-minute segment with our financial aid advisor to our orientation that we provide to our incoming students. Financial aid is big, and we know that, so we try to provide as much information related to that as possible. We also have several HRSA grants, SDS grants that we provide for our students each year, which is most helpful. Support can be provided by family, faculty, and peers. However, the study, some students indicated that traditional family and gender roles and lack of parental family understanding and direct opposition to expectations for academic achievement. I mentioned that earlier. This underlines the importance of involving parents in our on-campus activities, and we try to do that as much as possible. Another thing that we have done when we're recruiting is we've identified our adopted schools, perhaps community centers or churches, where groups gather and go to those, and sometimes that is a great place to meet with parents and tell them a little bit about opportunities in nursing and ways we can support their children in ways they can for success. So that's another area where we've done some work. And, of course, the importance of mentoring, again, comes up as it has in all three of our talks. Mentoring is so important, and we can incorporate that as much as we can.
Jean, we have
Advising support. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, I was going to have about 2 minutes, and I love that we have time for people to ask you questions. So do you want to pick a few things that are key, and then let's open up so people can talk with you, and then we can close out, and if we're allowed to stay on after 2:30, we'll definitely do that. So
okay.
You go ahead, and we'll save the case study for the groups to on their own with their mentors. The scholars can work on those case studies with their mentors.
Okay, thank you. Should I just quickly say something about our Student Success Program, because I think
yes.
that's we developed a Student Success Program, and early on most students are referred to our Student Success Coordinator. I've listed some of the early signs: test scores, missed assignments, clinical behaviors. Faculty refer these students, or students can self-identify. The Student Success Coordinator works with students in study skills, time management, test anxiety, math skills, exam prep, issues, all sorts of things. I also meet with students who are having particular crises in their life. We refer to counseling. We have an excellent counseling group. We use community services, resources on campus. Rushing, you can
Yeah, sorry.
Peer mentoring is a big thing here, our student orgs. We have fresh interest groups. And if any of these areas particularly interest you, please feel welcome to email me, and I'm happy to share any of that information. At the very end, I've listed email address as well as Chris Nelson's, who's our Student Success Coordinator. She is a wealth of information. Mary Ann would be a great resource if you have any information about work with students who are Hispanic, as well as some tools that are available. I'll take questions at this point. I'm going to skip the grants and went right to the meat of it.
Well, I think we have the information on the slide, so that's a big plus. And we did want to focus on resources, and the scholars need to understand that, grants is one way that resources come. So for questions, I'm looking for people to raise their hand to interact with Dean as well, and then we'll kind of wrap the session here. So, for the scholars, we'd love to have you use this time to ask questions. And I know that you work with your mentors and have follow-up sessions. Maybe some of you are in small groups even now together. Let's see, there's a case study here. While thinking of questions, I'll kind of move ahead here a little bit.
Diane, we had one question.
I'm sorry. Okay, go to, who is it? Oh, Alyssa. Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
In terms of the disparity that you noticed in the state of Texas, is there a goal that you have in terms of trying to close that disparity gap? Is there a certain percentage of minority or Hispanic nurses that you're trying to actually get into nursing, or are you just hoping to improve it overall?
Well, we're looking for an upward trend. And for reason I didn't talk about our adopted schools, but we have 7 adopted schools, and they are all the population of that schools is really Hispanic. So we're focusing. We've leveled off, and we had hoped for 12%, and then we were hoping to go 13, 14, 15. We noticed that we are recruiting more males who are Hispanic. We're very excited about that. And as I mentioned, we're dipping deeper into the elementary schools, hoping that we begin to plant the seed. We're giving up. We think it's just going to be a constant goal, pounding, and focusing on students who are in those areas and providing the supports once they are in the school.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to buzz in here, but I want all the scholars and if you have questions here at the end, we're going to be sure that we have minutes those. In case you guys can do on your own or in your groups, case study here. We've kind of hit on this, I think, all the speakers that do know that multicultural education goes beyond the classroom, that we need to be sure that we're paying attention to our courses and what our campus and schools of nursing look like. I think we had some great examples of that. Here's other ideas. Here's the wrap-up. Here are other questions that you can think of. I know we talked about some specific populations of students, but what are common themes and what would be different for other groups that are not discussed? And you may have from those groups in your classrooms, and what would be unique or what needs to be considered for them. So keep here. What else do you want to say or comment? I'm going to be quiet here in a minute. We're going to do the follow-up in the collaborative learning community online. This one's a 1-minute paper. It's one of those Angelo and Cross's assessment techniques. And while it takes a little bit longer than a minute, give us a quick view of what you will do in your classroom, specifically for your students or a population of students that are of interest to you, with as much detail and specificity, and probably in 4 or 5 sentences. We'd like to wrap this up by December, and then keep working on your portfolios. Next is going to be the 19th, and we're going to talk about clinical teaching. And I probably will not have that posted until, the middle of January. So we're running up. But let's go back here now and pick up any kind of, and before I forget, thank you to everybody. Let's pick up any muddy points here.
May I, this is Jean.
Sure, Jean.
I was just going to say, when I was listening to Dr. Porsche's presentation, I was reminded that when we do go out to recruit students, we really try to take a diverse group of students with us, and we try to involve them as much as we can. We think that when we take our students out, the students can identify more with them. And that group is diverse. It's very helpful.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. That's a good point to make clear here. Okay, else? And that's all we didn't. If you had loose end that you want to mention, go right now. Well, I'm kind of this. Go ahead.
I just a quick comment about men in nursing. I think the way to get more men in nursing is to get more men in nursing. In other words, the more we see them as nurses, and the more we are impressed, as I've been, at what they bring to the profession, the more younger people will come in. And often, the secret to swelling the ranks is the second career person. I've taught retiring fire and police, and they were among the best students I've ever had. They go on to graduate school without any question because they see nursing as a significant presence in their life, a significant part of their work life. And I'm teaching with one now who has a tremendous commitment to the field, and we should support some of these second career programs. And one second career person that is particularly, I think, ready to come into nursing are the vets in our ranks, too. Veterans, police, fire, people from any field. I think the more men we get in, the more men that will come in.
Good point.
That's all. That's a comment.
Okay. Wilson, can we stay on for further dialogue for those that would like to? Can we do?
Yeah, you can stay on.
Okay, I'll say we are respectful of everybody's time, so those of you that need to leave, feel free. But if you would we'll try to open the lines. If you can keep your room quiet, your phone muted, we'll see if we can have a little dialogue here. And again, I want to thank everybody so much. For getting all connected, and Nick, and then our panelists. This guys were great, and so I'm going to keep my mouth quiet, and you guys go ahead and add whatever else that did said, and anybody else that wants to ask questions, feel free. Lines are open.
They also said that you have to stop.
Which we can hear you, so don't be talking.
Right. I'm trying. It helps with a family member.
Okay, we can hear, who has a question or a comment?
It's easier for them to be accepted. The men are saying sometimes they think we're gay. Sometimes.
Guys, we can hear you. The lines are open. Any comment or a question? Yes?
Think about in nursing, when we think about males in nursing, we're coming from as...
We probably didn't hear you because you were breaking up. Can you tell us who you are and say again?
Lisa Mobley.
Okay.
Concern is that we talk about minority in nursing and we talk about men in nursing. We do lots and lots of research on their perspective and what's going on and how they feel. Are you doing any research on we as faculty in nursing and what it is that we may be unintentionally doing is creating some of these barriers.
Great question, and I'll toss that back to our panelists to begin with. Are you of any research about faculty?
This is Demetrius. There's very little on faculty, actually at all, that I've seen in relationship to males. There's a few, but not a lot. But overall, there's not a lot out on males, and what we do know about males, there's not a lot of literature out there.
I think it's an area that we're wide open for study. So those of you that are interested, continue. Demetrius' notion of doing the critical review of the literature really sounds fabulous. So I don't know if you're open to having anybody else with you, but I'll say the scholars may.
Thanks for putting them in my direction.
So scholars that are interested, there's a link for you.
I'm aware of research going on, but when we're working with our grant, we did provide several cultural diversity programs for our faculty, which included speakers as well as an open forum that supported a discussion related to diversity. And then, in addition, we formed a cultural diversity book movie club that involved all faculty and staff working in undergraduate student services. And it's been probably 3 years, and that group is still very active. And we found that most helpful to read or watch a movie and then have that discussion and kind of have that opportunity to look at some various views. So that's been very helpful.
Okay, great idea. So there's a lot of faculty development that's going on, but probably we don't have that all in the literature yet. Anything else? Anybody else have a comment they would like to make? And then I'm going to wish happy holidays and a good end of the semester for everybody. I'll look forward to seeing you in the online portion of our collaborative learning community, and thank you to everybody to participate. So, Wilson, are you going to messages for closing down the conference at this point?
No, I think we're all good. I'm going to stop it as soon as you're finished, and then it'll close down by itself.
Okay. Well, bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thanks.
What